Hey, Learn IT, Mr. P here. So I had a few comments asking me to please define or expand on what I meant by an air gap network versus something like an intranet. So let me give you an example from my own experience. So when I was working at a high school, we had an intranet, basically. We had a network inside the building. And inside that building, I could do things like I can interact with the printers, I can interact with the smart boards and other devices that are in that building. People from outside the building should not have been able to access those facilities because of a firewall or some other logic that was built in to block their traffic from the outside, the public internet, into my building. However, all the machines inside that building could still access the public internet. So they were not air gapped. There was a firewall, a block to prevent or filter some of the traffic from the outside to the inside. So what's the difference with an air gap network? Well, an air gap is physically a gap of air between your hub and the routers and everything else and the actual rest of the internet. So physically, there's a disconnection between your network and the rest of the internet. So nobody can get in or out. If you want to learn a little bit more about how to penetrate that, take a look at the famous Stuxnet, where the Israelis, with help with American technology, were able to penetrate the Iranian nuclear power facilities. Now, those networks that the Iranians had at Nahant were all air gapped, so you couldn't attack them from outside. But what they did is they figured out who was going to bring a laptop in there, put the virus on the laptop, and then that laptop was able to get past the air gap network. So if I have a hub or a router or sub switch like this, and I'm connecting my cables to my network devices, my Raspberry Pis, my laptops, my printers, whatever, and there's no connection at all between that network to the rest of the public internet, it's considered to be an air gap. There's a physical disconnection. But once I plug in a cable to the WAN or the wide area network and connect this thing to the rest of the internet, the air gap does not exist. So the reason I want to do an air gap in my own little test network is that prevents me, because I might be using devices here to do some network testing and diagnostic. I don't want to mess up anything that's on my rest of my network. I am also using things that are not necessarily secure, because sometimes when you're doing testing, you're using unsecured devices. So for example, if I have a network server that's using a default network password or no password because it's just easier to test it, it's going to be air gap. That way nobody can get in, I can't get out. All right. So like and subscribe, and please give me your questions. I hope I can answer them as clearly and succinctly as possible. Talk to you again later.